Please be seated. For a sermon today, we have a little surprise, and is the surprise of having Rabbi Dan Horwitz connected to us from the land of Miami as he leads the JCC down there. And it's a surprise with a little bit of a beshert in a way, because coincidentally we had Rachel coming back for the Haftarah and the reading that she did for her bat mitzvah. And with Rabbi Dan, so many times he came back to do his Torah reading on his bar mitzvah, Parashat Shmini, which is my Torah portion of my bar mitzvah. And back then we did the full Kriya, and he did it in 8 minutes. I know he doesn't want me to say those things because he is just in a different part of his life, but it is extraordinary for any human being to see people that you have somehow connected with in their youth and to see how they make progress. And they end up choosing a similar type of activity, and the older rabbi feels really reinforced by this great new generation. And it happens all that at the time I'm going to receive my doctorate in divinity. So I'm telling you, it's a beshert thing. And we have Rachel here that represents the young and new generation of Jews, the conservative Jews that will be in our pews in the future after COVID. So with that a little bit of introduction, Rabbi Dan, that you are in the land of Miami, I want to ask you a couple of questions. First, let me ask you, how are you doing? How is Miriam? How's Jonah, Micah, and Atara?
Good morning. Well, Atara's here and wants to say hi and Shabbat Shalom. And we're in a bit of a cold spell here in Miami. It's only in the high 60s to low 70s today. It's a little bit different than where you are and where we grew up in the Detroit area. And thank God we're doing okay. It's been, we moved here in the middle of COVID, so it's certainly been an adventure. But we've had some really beautiful touch points with communities that we care about along the way, not only courtesy of technology being amazing, but also through Zoom, being able to be with the Bethel Rochester community for the high holidays. So it's special to be able to be back with everybody now.
So, Rabbi, tell me about, we spoke before and we said that we will think of the challenges that Judaism is facing, not just now in COVID, but after COVID, and in what way that's going to shape up the future of Jewish life. I mean, after all, another great element of your life is that you were selected 2 years ago among the 50 most influential rabbis in North America because you're doing innovative things. And the well was that what you did. It was so incredible. But now, in a different position in your life, in a different age of your life, how do you see the future of your part, the JCC down there in Miami? How the challenges that you're facing, how are you feeling about that?
Totally. So I think in many ways we were on the path already, but COVID has accelerated the path, and it's fitting that we read the Torah portion of Beshalach as we have this conversation, because the Israelites come through the sea to the other side, but then there's some wandering, and spoiler alert, there's about 4 decades worth, and trying to figure out what it is that the structures of the Jewish community and society are going to be going forward. And I think in many ways right now, as a civilization, not only as an American democracy, but as Jewish community, we're once again wandering. We've had some of these inflection points in the past, such as the destruction of the temples, such as the creation of the state of Israel, that there have been these like big moments that helped kind of create new Jewish moments of expression, connection, and opportunity. And I think that we're still really figuring out what those institutions are going to be long into the future. And we don't know yet. And that's why for me, in some ways, that's very unsettling for many of us who grew up loving the institutions that we were part of. And in other ways, it's very exciting because it creates tremendous opportunities for innovation and to simply try a whole bunch of different things and throw them at the wall, so to speak, and see what sticks and what resonates with folks. So I think that's kind of the moment we're in. And it's a really interesting moment to have chosen to jump into running a JCC, because JCCs have really been trying to figure themselves out for some meaningful period of time, because originally in the States, the purpose of JCCs was to help Americanize our Jewish immigrant populations that were coming to the States. And now in many ways, the mission of JCCs have flipped from helping Jewish people become more American to helping American Jews become more Jewish by creating Jewish programmatic and learning opportunities. So it's interesting to see how that's unfolded as well in its own right.
And how do you deal when the JCCs along the country have, for a variety of reasons, and I think for a good reason, to accept people that are not Jewish, that now perhaps are more than 50% of their population, so all of a sudden you're going to turn into a place where you have Jewish programs and maybe bring a synagogue. And I think you and I talked about that. Should we bring the synagogue to the JCC or the JCC to the synagogue?
Sure. So ultimately, I'm a fan of Rabbi Erwin Kula's line of thought around this. He's one of the heads of KLAL, the Center for Learning and Leadership. He's an 8th generation rabbi, and he's a little bit out there in all of the good ways. And the language he uses is that, organized religion is meant to be a tool for human flourishing. So I view myself as the inheritor of a beautiful millennia-old wisdom tradition that has lots of things to say about how to lead a purpose-driven, meaningful life as part of community and to walk through the world in a certain way. And I think that those things, not in a dogmatic or proselytizing kind of way, that wisdom tradition has things to offer people who don't happen to be Jewish. So in terms of Jewish, not Jewish, and that piece of JCCs, admittedly, it becomes a little bit more challenging to build intentional Jewish community if the majority of the people that you're serving don't happen to be Jewish, which is the case in some JCCs, not all. But in general, believing that we have something meaningful and valuable to offer to the world and being able to present pieces of the Jewish wisdom tradition out to the broader world can inherently be a good thing and help people in their lives, regardless of whether or not they happen to be Jewish.
So new models of Jewish life that excel, that people want to belong to, could be refurbished, redone, rethought JCC, and I think synagogues too. I mean, I have said to this congregation and others that should we build, a little gym here and have the young people like Rachel today, come during the week and shoot some basketball and have a sense of the community that we somehow have lost along the way. And the question is, will that be the case? Yesterday it was lovely to see people here with the snow. One of the benefits of snow is to be able to slide and have fun, and the kids have a lot of fun. And here we have members coming, outside, and they were thinking, what about, a skate ring? What about, something that will bring them here to the shul? And they love coming. And yes, they're outside, they are not at services, but at the same time, they make that connection. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to merge this institution in a sense and come out after COVID with an alternative that is...
I mean, my impression at this point is that for the vast majority of North America's Jewish community, they're likely not going to make more than one Jewish choice as it relates to affiliation. I think the days of you are a member of one or even more shuls and you support the JCC and you're a member of XYZ, I think that we're going to see less and less of that just because we're now in an attention economy and there are more options than ever before that are competing for your time, that are marketing for your time. Even now, the notion it's hard that You would think that families are going to have a Shabbos morning practice where they come to shul, and then also a Sunday morning Hebrew school practice that they're going to give up both mornings on their weekend for Yiddishkeit. I think is probably a stretch going forward. And I think the shuls that I'm seeing that are having much success in the moment and are positioned for success beyond are the ones who candidly have said prayer needs to be a meaningful component of who we are and what we do, but it can't be the main focus of what we do. It has to be one of the services that we offer, but let's make sure that we're offering learning and programming and holistic wellness or yoga or like the shuls that are starting to look a little more like JCCs, because then if you already have an audience captured, one sec, sweetheart, if you have an audience captured and you can provide all the things that they want in that one place, that becomes comparatively beneficial to them in terms of streamlining, as opposed to trying to somehow be part of multiple communities simultaneously.
I could not agree more with you. Rabbi, one last question, and it's something we didn't talk about, and it just happened on Wednesday. Obviously, new communities being created as we go along, in general, not just in the Jewish community. And one community that was created was the community that decided to buy GameStop and get the stock up against the hedge funds who had, bet on the other direction. That's a community. It was created, it's a counterculture, if you will, willing to burn down the house, if you will. And I don't think that the Jewish community is going to be out of this situation. I think mutatis mutandis, we're going to have some sort of a Jewish community being created online. What are your thoughts about that?
So sorry, Atara saying hi. Say hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Hello, Atara.
Okay. What I would say is that it's already happening. There were already many folks who were finding Jewish community online before COVID, and now it's certainly been streamlined. I think one of the really interesting questions is going to be on the back end of this, how many folks are coming out of COVID with meaningful relationships with Jewish folks nationally, not even locally in their own backyard, and how do they still continue to support each other in a mutual kind of beloved community kind of way. Personally, having grown up as part of a Shabbos community and a shul community, there's something to be said for being able to drop off a meal to somebody and make the Shiva call. And I certainly believe that on the back end of COVID, there's going to be more demand than ever for folks who want to be part of communities where there are reciprocal responsibilities and, dare I use the word, obligations in terms of what's expected between one another, let alone between one and the divine, and that there's going to be a real hunger for that. People are lonely, and even in digital modes before COVID, digitally hyper-connected, but unbelievably lonely, because there's nothing the same as being able to give someone a hug, is being seen and known by somebody, being able to share space and feed off the energy that one contributes into a space that emanates from us as part of that divine flow. So I think shuls are going to be super well positioned on the back end if they can bring intention, again, not only to meaningful worship, because my guess is with almost 500,000 dead, there are a lot of folks who are struggling with their concept of God and why and those pieces, but also leaning heavily into the being part of supportive community side, the learning and growing, and really the kind of milut chasadim, these acts of loving kindness side to one another, as well as out into the community, is going to be the name of the game.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision. I know you're filled with challenges down there, and we wish you all the best. We know that as we cross the Sea of Reeds, we have incredible challenges ahead of us. It's going to be about water, it's going to be about food, it's going to be about what kind of a community we can form together. The good news is that we're here to stay. The good news is that we have the Torah to turn to, and the good news is, God willing, life will get not worse but better. Rabbi, thank you so much. We wish you all the best. We'll keep in touch throughout the weekdays, making sure that you see what's going on here and for us to know what you're doing there. Regards to Miriam, to John and Micah and Atara, you got lucky today, I guess.
I got lucky. 3 lollipops was all it took. So that's the